The Eunorau Meta has some features that I look for in a foldable bike, like a fast top speed, smooth and powerful hydraulic brakes, a long range, especially if you add the second battery kit, which extends that up to 100 miles, and some road grade tires, which not only look cool, but are super grippy. Now I'll get into all that later on in the review, but first I want to stop and just walk around the bike and show you what you get. And the first thing is the price. This costs $1,700, but you do have a 2-year warranty, and you can pick this up in 5 different colors. Let me take this off. Oh, and this is actually Eunorau's helmet. It's all smooth up top, some vent holes, got this white lining on the bottom, and is actually very comfortable. Okay, so back to the bike. As you can see, this is a step-through frame, so easy to mount and dismount. It's also adjustable. You can lower the saddle, lower the handlebars all the way down. And at this point, they say it can hold a rider 5'1". And then if you raise the saddle all the way up and the handlebars, they didn't give you enough slack, so you have to pull it up a little bit to hit the highest level. And they do have it marked on the bar. At this point, they say it can fit a rider 6'1". And to give you a point of reference, I'm 5'11", and I like the handlebar height. However, the saddle is a little bit too high for what I prefer. This also folds down like any other foldable bike, so I'll just show you how to do that. Saddle goes down, pedals fold up or down, handlebars, put those all the way down. And then there's a latch here that once you undo, the handlebars fold in. And then one right here for the frame, which folds in half. And there you go. Now, this is one of the heavier foldable bikes that I've tried. This is weighing 62 pounds, and I can carry a rider 286 pounds. Oh, look at that. I just scratched the frame when I folded it, so be careful when you fold this guy up. In the front of the bike, you got T-shaped handlebars, and I like this design that I see on a lot of bikes because it has this quick release up here, and when you undo that, then you can just rotate these. So all the gear, everything rotates as you rotate it. In the front of the handlebars, you have hydraulic brakes, a bunch of cords, but they are wrapped. Like I mentioned before, I wish they would have put some more slack in there. On the other side, you got some nice looking and feeling grips, and they are locked to the handlebars, so they're not gonna move. Next to that, you got a flimsy, cheap throttle. That's my least favorite throttle. And then you got the control pad. Hold the power button down for a couple seconds. Just 3 buttons. Power button's gonna change the readouts. Average speed, calories. Wait a second, calories, is that right? It's an electric bike. Am I burning calories when I'm riding? Plus and minus to change the pedal assist levels up to 5, down to 0. At 0, you got no power. Below those buttons, there's a spot for a USB cord. So you can plug your phone in there and charge it up. And then on this side, you have a 7-speed shifter. Going down, you can go about 2 to 3 gears, 1 push. Coming back up, just 1 at a time. Back to the LCD screen, if you hold down the plus button for a couple seconds, the screen dims, and that turns on a headlight and a tail light. Coming down in the front of the bike, you've got some hydraulic front fork suspension. You can adjust and lock that out. And on the other side, you have some preload. I'll test that suspension out later on in the review. Then you have some nice aluminum fenders. I like those. And then you got the tires, which I just think look pretty cool. It's the little things that I look for that make a bike stand apart, and the tires are one of them. And the last thing up front is the 180 millimeter rotor. I do like the paint job. That just looks beautiful. I like that color. I also like how they went internal with the wiring on each side of the head tube. Above that, they got 4 bolts to connect the second battery. And then as we move back and underneath the saddle, you've got some more decorations here. The Meta 20. One more thing I want to talk about as far as the frame is that you do have some welding scars, but they did a okay job of trying to make them blend in. Next thing I want to talk about is the saddle. On top it says comfort density. You are my density.
I'm your density.
Anyways, that is pretty comfortable, and there's suspension underneath. Behind the saddle, there's a rear rack. It has a carrying capacity of 25 kilograms.
That's about 55 pounds.
So if you're looking to pick this bike up to carry a second rider, don't do that unless they weigh less than that rating. Underneath the rack, you got another aluminum fender, and the cord to the taillight is coming up out of that fender, and I don't like that design because they mount the wire underneath here. I reviewed another bike that did that, and that wire came loose, and it was rubbing against the tires. I'm hoping that doesn't happen here, but I don't really care for that design. The last thing I haven't talked about is the motor, which is a 500 watt in that rear wheel. So let's go and test that out. Oh, I forgot to turn the bike on. Before I test how fast this can go, I gotta set it to its highest output. So any bad settings, if you hold the plus and minus button down, go to the speed section, to set it to its highest level, you gotta put it to 99. And then I'm gonna switch it to pedal assist level 5, and then hit the thumb throttle and see how fast I can go. Oh, heck yeah, that's 30 miles an hour. This bike just hit 30 miles per hour, and it costs $1,700, and it's a foldable bike. I mean, good job, little bike. Now, the reason why I use the throttle on that test is because that's the only way to top the bike out. Well, unless you want to pedal like a madman, because when I'm just casually pedaling, I can only hit 16 miles an hour, which means, as probably some of you guys have guessed, this is a torque sensor e-bike, which means the more pressure you put in the pedals, the more power it gives you. The bad thing is that you only have 7 gears, and even on that 7th gear, I have to pedal super fast to hit 24, 25 miles per hour. In fact, I tried to hit 30 miles per hour pedaling, and I couldn't. So I wish these guys would have given us, 8 or 9 gears. Before I move on to the acceleration parts of the power part of the review, there's 2 more things I want to talk about as far as speed. And the first is, when I was going 30 miles per hour when using the throttle, it took me about 3 blocks to get there. From 0 to 25, it's pretty fast. And then from 25 to 30, it's quite slow. And the second thing is that the elevation is really going to change how fast this goes. So even just the slightest hill is going to kill your top speed by about 5 to 6 miles per hour. When I did the speed test on throttle, one way I hit 30, the other way I hit 25. And that's pretty much all there is about speed. So how about acceleration? Well, with the throttle, as soon as you hit it, it goes. And it jumps up pretty fast. 10, 11, 12, 13, 15. I did an acceleration test on the throttle the other day and hit 22 miles per hour in 1 block. Now the acceleration when it comes to pedaling, which I have the gear set to 1 on the highest pedal assist level, it only takes about a quarter of a revolution before the power hits. I did an acceleration test while pedaling, and pedaling as hard as I could only get 24 miles per hour in 1 steady block. The last thing I gotta talk about as far as power is the hill test. I started at the bottom of a 20% grade hill, which is about a half a block long, without any momentum, and it climbed that hill pretty easy. By the time I reached the top, I was going 8 miles an hour. I'm very happy with the hill climbing ability this has. Well, enough talk about power. Let's talk about range. Because inside this frame, you got a 48 volt, 15 amp hour battery. That takes about 6 to 7 hours to fully charge. And you can remove it by just taking off this dust cover, putting the key in here, twisting it, falls out, and you can charge it outside of the bike or inside of the frame. They say that when it's fully charged, it can take you up to 50 miles. Now, as I mentioned earlier, if you wanted to spend a couple $100 more, you can pick up their dual battery kit to just mount it on top, which then of course doubles the range up to 100 miles. All right, guys, we're moving right along. Now let's talk about some brakes. Right side controls the rear brake, left side the front. I like the feel of the levers. It doesn't take a lot of pressure for hard braking, which is what I like to see with hydraulic brakes. The last thing I want to talk about is comfort. And the first thing I gotta mention is the hydraulic front fork suspension. You can adjust that, you can hear that click one at a time, or fully lock it out. I mentioned the tires before, but those are road grade tires, and so they're not gonna make a lot of noise, even when going 25 to 30 miles per hour. Before I find some rougher places to test the suspension out, I wanna talk about the ride and feel, because we really don't have a lot of motor noise. There's no popping or clicking, which is pretty rare when it comes to this foldable design. So everything is locked in and just feels solid. Got a curb here. We'll do the 6-inch curb test. Always a solid choice for a foldable fat bike with the hardtail. Oh, here we go. That hit hard, but not as hard as I was expecting it to hit. All right, guys, well, this met my criteria for a foldable bike, especially with the speed. 30 mile per hour top speed, I will take that any day. There's nice hydraulic brakes, which is a must for a bike in this price range. And then you got a decent range. Just with that single battery, that's 50 miles. But setting all that aside, I just like the paint job. I like the look, the rims, the tires, the grips. It just all melds in together to make a pretty cool looking bike for me. But I want to know what you guys think about it. So hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you think. Let me know if it meets your criteria for a foldable e-bike. If you like these guys, I've got another video that I've done of theirs, which I'll have up here somewhere. So go check that out. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Woo-wee.